As a seasoned reviewer with a passion for diving deep into the heart of anime, I'm thrilled to unpack Go! Loser Ranger, Season 2, Episode 2, which aired on April 20th, 2025. This episode, streaming on platforms like Hulu and Disney+, builds on the dark, satirical take on the tokusatsu genre that made the first season such a standout. With its blend of biting social commentary, complex character dynamics, and bold stylistic choices, this episode hooked me from start to finish, and I'm eager to share why it's both a thrilling continuation and a fascinating evolution of the series. Let's break it down through several thematic lenses: narrative momentum, character depth, visual and sound design, thematic resonance, and pacing, to explore what makes this episode soar and where it stumbles, all while keeping you glued to your seat with my unfiltered thoughts. First, let's talk about the narrative momentum, because I think this is where Go! Loser Ranger shines brightest in Episode 2. The story picks up with Fighter D, our rebellious anti-hero, now embedded in the Green Battalion, navigating the fallout of the Blue Keeper's demise from Season 1. I love how the episode wastes no time plunging us into the tension of Fighter D's covert mission to dismantle the Dragon Keepers from within. The plot feels like a tightly wound spring, with every scene pushing the stakes higher. For instance, the Red Keeper's frustration and the Dragon Keeper's desperate attempts to conceal Blue's death create a palpable sense of chaos, which I found utterly gripping. However, I'm a bit torn about the introduction of new plot threads, like Wallapan's cryptic schemes. While I appreciate the intrigue, I personally don't understand why the show feels the need to layer on another mysterious figure so early. Wallapan's puppet-driven recap in Episode 1 was quirky and fun, but here it feels like a distraction from Fighter D's arc. Still, the episode's focus on setting up the Green Keeper showdown kept me on edge, and I anticipate this conflict will explode in deliciously chaotic ways. Moving to character depth, I really appreciate how Episode 2 fleshes out both Fighter D and the supporting cast, particularly Hibiki Sakurama and his sister Sesura. Fighter D's internal struggle, balancing his revolutionary ideals with the practicalities of infiltration, is portrayed with nuance that makes him endlessly compelling. I felt a pang of empathy watching him grapple with his role in the Green Battalion, knowing he's one misstep away from exposure. Sesura's appearance, though brief, adds a layer of personal stakes that I didn't expect but absolutely adore. Her dynamic with Hibiki hints at a fractured family history, and I'm dying to see how it influences Fighter D's choices. That said, I'm against the show's tendency to sideline other characters like Angel Yusakobo, who feels underutilized despite her potential. I don't think the episode does enough to explore the Dragon Keeper's individual motivations either. Red's unhinged behavior is fascinating, but I crave more insight into his psyche beyond surface-level rage. Still, the character moments, especially Fighter D's quiet resolve, hit me hard and kept me invested. Now, let's dive into the visual and sound design, because this is where I think Go! Loser Ranger flexes its creative muscles. The animation, courtesy of Yostar Pictures, is a feast for the eyes. I was blown away by the sketchy, almost frenetic line art used to depict Red's deteriorating mental state. It's a stylistic choice that feels raw and visceral. The action scenes, though sparse in this episode, crackle with energy, particularly a brief sparring sequence in the Green Battalion that had me leaning forward in my seat. I also love the mixed media touches, like Wallapan's puppet antics, which add a surreal charm that sets the show apart. On the audio front, Yoshihiro Ike's score is a perfect blend of ominous and playful, amplifying the episode's tonal shifts. The opening theme, Jikai Yikoku, by Tatsuya Kidani, is still stuck in my head, and I can't get enough of its gritty vibe. My only gripe? I didn't like how some background visuals felt static during dialogue-heavy scenes. I get that the focus was on character interactions, but a bit more dynamism in the settings would have elevated the experience. Thematically, Episode 2 digs deeper into the series' core question. What happens when the facade of heroism crumbles? I'm obsessed with how the show critiques the performative nature of the Dragon Keeper's justice. The episode's exploration of public perception, through the Keeper's efforts to hide Blue's death, feels like a sharp jab at real-world institutions that prioritize image over truth. I also anticipate that the contrast between Red's public persona and his blood-soaked reality will be a highlight this season, as teased in the episode's final moments. That said, I'm a little frustrated that the show doesn't push this satire further. I personally don't understand why we're not seeing more of the public's reaction to the Keeper's cracks. Wallapan's provocations hint at this, but I want the narrative to lean harder into the societal fallout. Still, the episode's ability to weave these themes into Fighter D's personal rebellion is what makes it resonate so deeply with me. Finally, let's talk pacing, because this is where I have mixed feelings. On one hand, I love how the episode balances action, character moments, and world building without feeling rushed. The 24-minute runtime flies by, and I was hooked from the opening scene to the cliffhanger ending. However, that didn't please me entirely. The middle section, with its heavy focus on Green Battalion dynamics, drags just a tad. I don't think it's a deal-breaker, but I felt the momentum dip when the episode lingered on expository dialogue about the Keeper's internal politics. I'd have preferred a tighter focus on Fighter D's next move or a flashier action beat to keep the energy high. That said, the final act, with its tease of the Green Keeper confrontation, snapped me right back to attention, and I'm already counting down to episode 3. In conclusion, go, go, Loser Ranger. Season 2, episode 2 is a bold, engaging chapter that deepens the series' subversive spirit while setting the stage for explosive conflicts. I love its character-driven storytelling, stunning visuals, and sharp thematic edge, even if I'm frustrated by a few pacing hiccups and underdeveloped characters. I really appreciate how the show keeps me guessing, and I'm thrilled to see where Fighter D's rebellion takes us next. If you're a fan of dark, witty takes on superhero tropes, this episode will keep you glued to your seat, just like it did for me.